Hello， 大家好！哇哦，我真的是很久没有来到我的頻道了，真的很抱歉讓大家久等了。那今天這一期節目呢，是我真的預備了很久，其實也是很沉重的一個話題，是跟婚姻有關。那我請到的嘉賓呢，是我的好朋友 Sammy， 大家應該對他有一點熟悉啊，他曾經有來過我們的這個頻道，然後分享過一些也是婚姻的跟婚姻有關的話題，所以今天再次請到他。那我們今天要談的不光是跨國婚姻，我們還要講到一個是神經多樣性婚姻，挑戰您的價值觀，返璞歸真過生活。歡迎收看《10萬個為什麼》，我是你的好朋友路德。在節目一開始提醒大家訂閱我的頻道，並打開小鈴鐺，千萬不要錯過每周五的精彩節目哦。今天要討論的呢是關於溝通。我覺得在溝通這個方面，哇，這個真的是我自己婚姻裡面最大的一個困難，因為一方面是有語言的問題、文化的問題，就是差異，男女差異各種背景差異。那後來才發現，我們不光有這些差異，我們還有腦神經的差異。對，就是說，我們在處理信息的這個過程也是不一樣的。我不知道 Sammy 有沒有這樣的困難？你跟你的先生在溝通上，你們都講英文，你的英文也很好。
Right.
你們覺得就是說，同樣都是在北美長大的，你們之間的這個溝通是怎麼樣？
So actually, that is definitely a difficult area. I remember, even when we were dating, there were different times where he'll be like, "No, that's not how you say it," or "That's not right," or something. Just many times where I feel like, okay, why is it that I'm speaking the same language but not speaking the same language? And I think for the longest time, I thought it was just our personalities were very different. The way he thinks is very kind of, in Myers-Briggs, he's a T, so he's like thinking very kind of step by step, logically, but that's just how, and very detailed in some ways, the way he processes. And for me, I'm more like a feeler. I'm an F. So I'm like, oh yeah, well, kind of like, as long as you kind of understand what I mean, it's okay. The details is not, this is just more communication. Of course, in other things, we're totally opposite, in like managing the household or whatever. So I think definitely, I remember reading an article about missionaries who were doing overseas missions. And one of their greatest problems in their marriage was also feeling like they just could never communicate.
鸡同鴨講.
So basically, that's when she shared that in the article that her husband has ADD, and she herself has something called CPTSD. So that was very interesting to me because it was right around that time that my husband found out he has ADD. So I was like, wow, this is interesting. I didn't think communication was a problem because of the neurodivergence. And then what happened was I found out through my husband finding out that, actually he has a slight, very mild autism too, which is often with ADD. But what happened is people with that neurodivergent type, they take things very literally. Like if you say something, they think exactly as it is.
是
Right. So for me as an F, that's a big problem because
我有个例子，就是你刚才講到這一點，就是前陣子呢，我先生他想要買一個摩托車 ，OK，那摩托車也不便宜，那我們現在其實也就是需要用錢到別的地方啊，我自己是不太贊成要買這個摩托車，但是他就很喜歡，他就覺得這是他好像從小的夢想，然後他覺得這個摩托是可以帶來很多的，給他帶來很多的快樂，很多的自由對，反正他就是很想要這個摩托車。然後呢，我就試着跟他分析為什麼我們現在不能要這個摩托車就跟他講，那他就會覺得我在控制他，就是我在限制他的 他的這個愛好 ，OK，好，然後我就感覺到沒有被正確的理解，對啊，我就覺得我其實不是在控制你，我只是想跟你解釋我的觀點，我的看法，好。然後呢，他就反正就很不高興，他就說我控制他。然後後來我就變得很生氣，然後我生氣的时候我就說 whatever you buy what you want， you know， 我就講了一句，我說不管你就隨便買吧，你想買什麼就買什麼。然後他就真的就去買了。
Because you said whatever.
Yes. Yes, exactly. 他說 You told me I can do whatever I want. 我當時真的。我就知道說他的理解，他对這個我的話語的理解是字面上的理解，他聽不到我背後的情緒，他不知道我講這個話，他其實是帶着情緒，其實是我不願意他買，但是他不懂，所以就回應你剛才講的這一點。
Yeah, so I think, man, it adds a whole new dynamic and challenge to communication because it's already hard. I think cross-cultural and just in marriage in general, and then you add the neurodivergence, and I think, yeah, it's something that I think you have to. I mean, I'm still very much learning, but I think also it takes a lot of time, but also I think it takes a lot of understanding in each part because like we have to understand, okay, now actually with the neurodivergence it's like a whole communication difference, but for them too, they also have to adapt in different ways, learning that. So I think, yeah, for us, honestly, it has helped in the sense like now when we talk and then when let's say, he started telling me a lot of details, which also happens with ADD and mild autism, is they give you more information than you need. So sometimes it's like that, and then, and then so I just instead of getting frustrated or feel like, okay, or
如果是他們感興趣的話題
right, yeah, or sometimes he'll keep forgetting. This is a communication, challenge we had for longest time. I feel like I literally told you this 5 times already. And then he'll ask me again. And I'm just like, I'm going to lose it. So I think instead of, obviously, I still get kind of annoyed. But I think before I found out about the neurodivergence, I would get really upset, and just really really mad. So I think it's helpful.
你觉得他忘記是故意忘記，你不相信他真的忘記 right?
Right, yeah. Or just kind of like
他沒有 pay attention, 他沒有
pay attention, or like, why don't you remember? It sounds terrible, but I think from someone who is what they call kind of neurotypical is what they call it, neurotypical. So because it's not normal or abnormal, it's typical or atypical. I think our brains just cannot imagine or understand otherwise, For us, it's like, well, how can you forget? Like it's like eating food, right? Like why would you not eat food, or why would you forget to eat?
Yeah, 我還發現一點在溝通中的困難就是他們沒有辦法處理很大量的信息。
對，
就是說你跟他講話的時候，你要講一點，然後他要聽，然後我要去 verify，就是確保他是聽懂了，然後我才可以講下一點。我發現這一點，就是我喜歡講一下子講很多，然後我都覺得你在 follow 我這樣子，但是沒想到他根本就沒有 follow，他整個就是 lost， 然後只記得那個幾個就是只記得幾個詞，然後這幾個詞還不是重點不是 keywords， 他記得的就是那幾個好像能夠 trigger 到他的情緒的詞，所以有的時候講了半天他還是聽錯。對，
Yeah, so that's the thing too. I realized, I learned that ADD in terms of communication with the neurodivergence, they have a lot of overstimulation actually, so they can feel like overwhelmed quite often because it's a lot kind of overstimulation, or they call it sensory overload. So that's what I also realized too. It's kind of like, okay, if he is either doing something or he's watching TV or doing something, he's already, there's the focus problem too, right? So if I'm talking to him, it's like he's not gonna be able to hear. Even normal marriage would be hard because they're doing something, right? But especially with the neurodivergent. So I realized actually there have been times now where I even though I have something to say, I don't say it then because I realize it's not gonna, he's not gonna hear it, or it's not helpful because he's already overstimulated, or you know, sensory overload. So if I say it, it's either will be arguing, frustrating, or he just forget and then I get frustrated. So sometimes now I find I just kind of wait for the right time, kind of, and then like you said, share little bits, you know, instead of telling him this is the 10 things that needs to be done, then it's like maybe just pick 2. That is more important.
所以合适的时间、合适的地点，这个是很重要的。还有就是我自己觉得最有效的方式其實不是說，因為我覺得說他會忘記，其實最容易是寫，就是把它寫下來。寫下來，然後他可以讀，然後他可以去慢慢的去想。因為有時候我跟他講，他要麼就沒有反應，他不知道該怎麼回答，因為他不知道怎麼去，就是他可能也忘了我說什麼，或者說他沒有時間去 process 他的大腦，所以他需要很多時間去一遍一遍的讀，然後把它看懂，然後他才能夠去回應。OK， 然後他寫給我的時候，他也不會那麼的衝動。講到這個，我就覺得還有一個很大的困難，就是我跟我的先生在溝通一些衝突的時候，他很容易衝動，就是很容易情緒衝動，就是因為他聽錯嘛，或者是他抓到幾個詞，然後就理解錯誤，然後就會變得非常的容易被冒犯，就會有自我防衛。OK。然後就可能就會表現出來就是憤怒啊，然後就是講話就有很多的這種攻擊性的言語啊，所以剛開始的時候我也覺得哇，這 character 的問題，或者是 spiritual 的問題，you know， 我會覺得說你有這個憤怒的靈，我還覺得就是我要給他趕鬼，you know，
是，yeah，
對，所以但是後來真的也是學到這個，神經動揺性這個 ADD 的人，或者是就是自閉症啊，剛才Sammy 有講到他們其實真的就是在管理情緒方面也是有障礙也會有困難，就是他的情緒會很快的就衝上來，他不會像我們一般人可能會慢慢的去想，慢慢的才會生氣，但他們就會很快，但他們的氣退的也很快。就是他生氣很快，但是他一下子氣消下去也很快。那我呢是跟他相反，我是氣上的慢，消的也慢。所以有的時候這個在溝通的時候也是一個衝突，因為我們的情緒就沒有辦法對齊嘛，也是一直在錯位。所以就後來發現溝通的時間、溝通的地點，還有怎麼溝通，都是需要做準備的。不是想說就說，對，而且我還學到就是有一個叫做 learning conversation，就是你要講這句話講出來，要問他你怎麼理解我講的話。如果他不講的話，其實很有可能他的理解是跟我講的是不一樣的意思。就他一定要講出來，然後我要去correct， 或者是我要去就是調整。你理解的這個有一點不一樣，跟我講的不一樣，所以這個溝通就變得很慢，因為每一步你都需要去保證他是聽懂的。所以很多時候我都選擇就我就寫就好了，我就不想要再跟他講來講去，這樣就寫。對，當然寫也是需要在我心情比較平靜的時候，然後跟神禱告，然後有這個智慧去寫，讓他不會產生誤會。因為其實 只是看字，有時候他也是會誤會嘛。
Yeah, you can misunderstand.
對，但是這個就是對我們而言比較有效的溝通方式。
I think actually what you said is true. Writing down helps a lot. I think it helps us and it helps them because, yeah, I think it just gives time to think through. Even though it can cause miscommunication if not read right, but I think at the same time, being able to, not have a long conversation over writing, but at least some things to, I think I found that helpful too. Yeah, because I think, and it's funny because my husband and I dated long distance before we got married. So we did only text back then. And then I realized, yeah, we didn't have as much, well, we still argued, of course, because we would talk on the phone sometimes, or whatever. But I realized we always felt it was easier to communicate
with text
through, rather than talking.
对.
So now looking back, I realized why, because of the neurodivergence. But we didn't know then, I thought it was just because that's what happens with long distance relationships.
Yeah.
But
而且自閉症他们也不喜歡講話，他們也不喜歡用語言去溝通，對吧？就是至少我先生他也不喜歡講電話。我可以跟朋友講幾個小時電話，但對他來說那個是絕對不可能的。他很不喜歡講電話，他也喜歡 text， 對，所以好像這個也是一個對。
Yeah, I think it's a combination too, like because I think with the talking, it's also some of the extra stimulation, the sensory overloads,
對對對。
And then if your husband have a personality that's more introverted or, depending on different people, that also adds to the overload. So yeah, my husband is introverted. So for him to talk to someone and then, to have a lot of people, he likes people, but, it's a sensory overload. So he has to schedule time to decompress and not, even with our own family, with our own kids and stuff. So I think it's definitely, a learning process for sure, but it's not easy because you have many pieces now, especially if you have intercultural marriage, but marriage in general, right? And then you have the spiritual piece too of like, okay, sometimes it is the enemy trying to bring division. So, you always have to kind of be prayerful, but learn practical skills and,
对，就是
and navigate.
我覺得選擇要說的或者選擇要溝通的這個主題也是很重要。就是說，不是所有的事情你都要去跟他溝通。後來我發現，就是有些事情，可能就 let it go， 就是也沒有那麼的真正那麼的重要，或者說，其實有時候我們禱告一下，神也就會去改變這個局勢，就是不需要說好像每一個問題、每一個衝突都要去講，因為對他們來說，其實他們是很害怕衝突的人，他們很不喜歡衝突，所以他也不知道該怎麼去處理衝突，所以有時候就會造成一個不必要的關係的一個緊張，對，所以我覺得就是說，我們總結一下，就是溝通的時間很重要，溝通的地點也很重要，溝通的方式很重要，還有溝通的內容也很重要，就是溝通的話題不是隨便什麼話題都可以去溝通的，我們需要禱告呀，需要有智慧就是選擇。對，不是想說就說，因為我以前以為我結婚以後，我的 husband 就是我的 best friend， 我什麼都可以跟他講，我想說什麼就說什麼，他都可以接納我，OK， 他可以理解我。後來我發現這個完全是不現實的，因為我覺得只有耶穌才是我們最好的朋友，因為只有他才能夠完全的接納我們、理解我們。對，那所以我也需要改變我對丈夫的期待，好，所以講到這裡就是我們下一個主題，期待。